Welcome, everyone. This is the May meeting of the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. I have two special guests tonight. First, our assembly member. They will point us everything that's going on at the state capitol. And following that, we're going to have a discussion of the LEAD program. That's LEAD. The Law and Enforcement Assisted Diversion program, and that's from Bob Ward and Jenny Hewing, who are co-directors of that program. And we'll have our usual report outs, and we'll hear from our neighborhood officer, all of that. So with that, we're going to go straight to you, Paul, and with the assistant.
Yes, thank you. Hi, good evening. I'm really sorry that I am late. I've never been known for my promptness, but tonight, as I pulled out, I was just leaving the office, and they had the corporate challenge, so I had to quite the circuitous route to get here, other than try to jog it on 5K. Did you folks hear me, or do you want me to use the mic? Am I okay?
No, you're going to hear.
Everybody hear me a little bit.
Back for this recording.
Oh, we're recording. Okay, thank you. So I know I'm going to try to be brief. I also have an 8 o'clock that I have to be at in Troy, or before 8 actually. And I recognize I kept dear Bob Ward waiting, and I'm sorry, Bob, because I guess it was which one of us. So I appreciate that I have the lead folks and Jeannie. So I'll try to be fast, but I would love to take questions because I know I never hit on things that people always care about. And I know I had done, I don't think it was a PowerPoint, but I know I have talked about Harriman campus and Wadsworth. It seems like now over a year ago. Would that be over a year ago? Yeah, it was all remote. So I very much want to talk about that because it's something incredibly near and dear to my heart. And of course, it's also near this neighborhood that we all, and I'm a neighbor, but I also want to make sure I talk about the budget, which now seems like ancient history, even though it was only 2 weeks ago. But we have, we had to frantically pivot because it's the first time the budget I'm in my 11th year. That's just so hard to believe. But it is the latest the budget has ever been in my 11 years. It's certainly been later, and what that's done then is condense the end of session. And as I often remind people, at any given time, there's about 10,000 bills in play in any two-year cycle. We're only up to about over 7,000 right now. But I'm also the new higher ed chair where there's 350 bills, and thank you. But it's been drinking from a fire hose. Plus, we have a whole host of governor's executive orders that are expiring next week in my district, which is here, Albany, Guilderland, and New Scotland. We have the two biggest hospitals in this major region. Any out-of-state nurse, and we've had a lot of traveling nurses because the pandemic has ended, the terrible staffing shortages and all healthcare problems and on have not ended. So we have a lot of executive orders, and there's to say there's a lot of bills we're trying to get through is just an understatement. I've just been going round the clock on everyone else's bills, which is the big change for me this year as the higher education chair. I'm focused on everybody else's bills and a few of my own. So I'm going to just briefly mention a couple of the highlights because I really want to go to this, and then I know because Virginia Hammer is here, and Leah's here, and Carolyn, and I could name all of you. None of you are bashful, so I know every one of you would have questions. So I'll try to be brief. So do this if I start talking too long, because I really do want to open it up to all the wilting flowers here, right? So the budget. The biggest win locally really was the Wadsworth campus. Truth be told, and you'll see me get to this I'm a little dismayed. There was $500,000 I wanted there for the Harriman redesign. We didn't get that $500,000. I beside myself over it, quite frankly. I shouldn't be so frank, but the bottom line is we still have to redesign Harriman, and we'll talk about that. Record amounts of funding for SUNY and CUNY. I'm very proud of that. I put an extraordinary amount of thank you. And thank you. We, I really said, don't make me chair if we're gonna, not fund SUNY CUNY. Yes, enrollments are dropping. Yes, we have a lot of challenges in higher ed. But they've been really starved. And so what's happening is we have a lot of independent private institutions and some people say CUNY, some of the CUNY buildings are being held together with Scotch tape, so so in addition to record setting facilities dollars, we also did prevent a tuition increase. Although quite frankly, I tell everybody the governor did us a favor by proposing a tuition increase because it gave a lot of attention that we needed. For operating aid, so we got record setting operating aid. Did we get everything we wanted? Absolutely not. So I can tell you all that. Usually my list of what we didn't get in the budget is longer than what we did get, but I'll short circuit that and welcome Uwus, our city council member. So I'm just going to do that. The other criminal justice, I know we just had 10 shootings just this weekend. I know it's continuing to be a serious issue. Thank you, officer, for all you do. But many of you have heard me say this, but it bears repeating. I am proud of my votes on bail reform. Everything seems to, whether it's criminal justice or anything close to it, it all seems to fall under the umbrella, at least in the press, of bail reform. I'm very proud of my votes of undoing what have been decades of injustice where your pocketbook really dictated your level of justice. So I stand by, and I don't care if I'm here or in New Scotland or any other place in the state, I stand by my votes from a few years ago. That said, I've also been vocal to say there were areas we needed to tighten up. I think we've had some success on that again. We did last year as well. Domestic violence is a very serious one. We made a couple of very small technical changes, but we had some egregious cases. Won't get into, but there was one in Buffalo. I thought it was actually going to cost the governor the election last year. So we've small tightening up on domestic violence. I don't think we've done enough on retail theft. There's more to be done on retail theft, and as you know, it's an issue everywhere, especially with having businesses shutting down between the Rite Aids, the Stewards, and the CVS. But it's even a bigger issue in certain ways in New York City. But we have tightened up again the repeat offenders. The other, and so there's a few changes. I just saw the police chief again this morning. I said, you tell us if you think, I think bail reform is a lot like disability rights reform from 3 decades ago. It's never going to be, it may never be a one and done. It's like education, right? You're always going in to tighten up or improve where you need to. We'll have to see how this plays out. If you listen to some, we've maybe that's a sign of a good compromise, but some are saying we've done absolutely nothing and no real reform. We're still being criticized for not having done enough. And then on the other side, we are, we have a member who's done hunger strikes on what we have done. So it's two extremes. We're just going to have to see how this plays out. And I said that to the chief today. You tell us if you think some of the changes have helped or not. But happy to take other questions. I know we have a lot to do. The good news is we also had record-setting funding on some evidence-based gun violence. Many of you know I've sponsored a lot of gun legislation. I don't think we can ever be tough enough on guns, and that is a part of it. I still think we have an issue. Again, it's a small issue, but I think some of this is being left to interpretation on youth and gun possession. And I think that's going to continue to, that's going to continue to be an issue that we're going to have to address. And we know that that's an issue here in Albany with guns and all. So you can also please feel free to, I think there's more work to be done there. The prevention programs are obviously essential, the youth programs and more, but we know we have a lot to do. I will tell you, I met with I was in a meeting with the Board of Regents. We had a luncheon that the speaker hosted the other day. I was in as chair of higher ed along with the education chair. I made it very clear, they've all heard from me on this already, earlier in the year. We are never, a huge part of this problem. And there's many parts of this, right? but we have a serious absenteeism issue here in Albany High. And the chancellor had made a comment in the lunch about performance and the, this continuing academic achievement gap. And I just reminded all that I still think we need to be much, much stronger on attendance. And I think it's fueling some of the problems. So I have written to all of them. I've talked to the education chair. Happy to have a whole conversation. I know I only saw them yesterday, but I understand we have a new superintendent who may be coming. I don't know anything about him. I mean, let's hope there's, let's hope it's a good move. I really have no idea. But I do think there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work on multiple levels to try to address, especially the youth crime issues. Like that said, we record-setting funding for education, but again, you can only fund things so much. We also have work to do to, and I actually had two students that were in, two Albany High students also raising some very serious concerns who were me. Actually, our former superintendent, Karita Adams, as part of the Big Five, she brought some students down to meet with us at the Capitol, and I caught quite an earful from those students too about some of the serious needs. Climate change, we could do a whole forum on that. We hit a lot of home runs on climate change, home runs on in terms of funding. That one bill that did not make it through was mine, which is the HEAT Act, which is to address some of the costs, energy costs, as well as what's called this 100-foot rule to stop utilities from paying for perpetual gas hookups. It's a lot more involved, but we did a lot of bills that were considered very successful in the budget. It was one of the positive pieces in the press for the budget, except my bill on HEAT Act. So we're still working on that, but that's going to take a little bit longer. It falls into the same line that's helping us transition away from fossil fuels. Minimum wage has been increased again. Not everybody was happy, but it is an increase, and it's a balance between small businesses, but I do think it will help encourage the workforce. And I have another bill that I've had for 3 years on an issue I'm quite passionate about, which is earned income tax credit, because it's one of the most strongly evidence-based programs to encourage work, and it's very targeted on low-wage workers. I have a bill that would also target non-custodial parents, which is often young men. Anyway, we had it in the one house budget. We were able to get $250 million for it last year. This year, I couldn't get it in the three-way. I think what happened is I really lost out on the child care tax credit. And instead of doing both, which I fully support, the child care tax credit prevailed, mine did not. So it's another one we go back at, but it's a little discouraging because I think it too targets, families in very, very serious need, especially with inflation going crazy. I'm gonna stop there on housing. I don't think I need to tell anybody in the scoop that the budget, the 3 of the 4.5 weeks that the budget was held up, 3 of it was on some of the criminal justice reforms and housing. I'm still rather, if I had been here during the budget, I would have just, I feel like I misled people because I just assumed we would be addressing housing on both sides. We absolutely need to grow housing. We've got to grow our stock. I think the governor was right on that, even if she may have played it wrong. And I don't think there was enough emphasis in her housing compact proposal to add in affordable housing. But I supported the concept because we're never going to get out of this housing crisis without growing housing, period. But that was supposed to be coupled with housing and tenant protections, including vouchers, including housing right to counsel and some other pieces. I did not support good cause. Happy to take questions on it. I only didn't support it because I think it was a flawed bill, and it's part of why it has languished for 4 years. But there were a whole other piece of tenant protections I've talked to a couple of them. I talk every day to the housing chair in the assembly, but that's on a multitude of bills. I've talked twice now to the Senate housing chair, and I'm not super optimistic that you're going to see a housing package get through by the end of this session, which for me is, well, for many people is, you know, a massive disappointment, because again, because of the need on both levels. We need some tenant protections, we need help for tenants. We did include 391 million, not insignificant, a massive thing, but that was a massive funding for some of the last parts of the ERAC program for which is the emergency rental protection for those who are in public or subsidized housing. That was done, but not for those who are not. Anyway, so that is to be continued. I'm just going to stop there, and I'm going to switch to Wadsworth, because I know I really am trying to get through so much. This is thousands of pages I'm trying to condense in a few minutes, and I talk fast, but not that fast. Okay, Wadsworth, again, you heard a lot of this last year. If I didn't get it, I think I still have another couple of copies. Did you get a copy? Yeah. So I'm going to read off this so that you can see. Again, many of you heard this. I think we had this amazing opportunity a number of years ago. SUNY Poly, sorry, I'm going to be working all night on this higher ed agenda. Wadsworth, so on and off for 10 years. There has been a proposal to redo the public health labs, right? 3 years ago, I remember having to explain what Wadsworth was. Fast forward to COVID, the whole world now has heard of Wadsworth, right? But as a part of that, so at one point there was a major push to put the reinvestment to consolidate and rebuild the labs. Are in 5 different locations. To put them over at the East Campus near where Regeneron is. So the first part of what has been almost a 10-year fight for me, I can't even believe this, but the first fight was to keep it in Albany. 4 of those 5 labs, the main part of the labs, are Albany. Those are Albany city jobs. I've been quite passionate about keeping any redo of a lab in Albany. So that became the first part of the fight. Then the fight was where to locate it. There were no good sites. Wadsworth, Harriman became the choice about 5, 6 years ago. It wasn't anybody's favorite choice because it is easier to get, if you are on the Harriman campus, it is easier to get to Clifton Park because of those ring roads than it is to get to downtown Albany. That's a serious problem that I'm going to get back to. But there was everything else was too small land or not available for the size of the land they need. So that was it. And then we lost the funding because under Governor Cuomo, at one point he pulled the funding during COVID, and on decent authority, it was partly because he wanted to move the labs down nearer to the city. We heard Long Island. I think there was a lot of merit to that because it was zeroed out. So then the fight was to restore the funding. Fast forward, we have Governor Cuomo, Governor Hochul. She restored the funding this year. She more than doubled it. So now we are at one point, and it was finalized in the budget. We are at $1.7 billion. Part of it is it's the same problem we're running into at the port. We've had concrete, cement, and lumber all double or triple in cost, right? 100 and 200% increases. So the costs are going up. So there's a lot of reasons, but that's part of it. And you've seen a little bit of criticism on the press. But the point is that we not only consolidate the labs, but to me, it's not enough that you rebuild labs. This has to be a win-win for Albany. And I also think it's not just that it is time, to me, it just makes no sense to do a 1960s model again of a standalone state office campus where, again, easier to get to Clifton Park than to downtown Albany. It also, I think, if you think of millennials and more, there is an interest in having a destination place. So I don't think it works any longer to recruit people to a campus, as I often say, where you cannot get a postage stamp without getting in a car, getting on the ring roads and driving, driving to Colony, unfortunately, or others. So it's not, if we're going to make this investment, it has to be a win-win on multiple levels. So I want to see it integrated into the city of Albany. We want the full multiplier effect of the public investment with spin-offs in research as well as commercial enterprises. We are finally redoing Breviter. I wish that, this had gotten a little bit ahead of it because you'll see on the slides. I wish we were further along on this because there might have been certain tweaks with Breviter, but if we do this right, it would rebuild the commercial corridors along Western Avenue and as well as Washington to really, help not just life science, research or more science investment, but the coffee shops, the retail, and even housing that we are so desperate in need of. So let me just go to the next. Oh, you're already okay. Thank you. Sorry. So yeah, sorry. I'm trying to look at this and not lose the screen. So this is the 27 acres. Here's Breviter, here's 85. This is the 27 acres that have been set aside for Wadsworth. I also take issue with having an entire 27 acres. I don't think you need the 27 acres. And the last thing we need is a building with another massive parking lot. Again, we really need to get out of the 1960s. And if I sound frustrated, it is because I've been on this forever and it cuts across 5 different agencies. We've now had a change in administration and Department of Health, which is the lead on the Wadsworth proposal. We got a new commissioner in under the new Governor Hochul, only to see that commissioner change in less than a year. So we're kind of back to square one. Thank God the new commissioner is John McDonald's brother, so we know where to find him. So that I guess doesn't hurt, but it's just cutting across 5 agencies has been very difficult. So some of you may have said, a couple of you saw a quote I had in the papers the other day that said, if we don't do this right, I'm standing in front of a bulldozer. I was being a little more of my flippant self, which I didn't mean to see in the press, but I guess it's not the first time. Can you go to the next? So this is, there are no new ideas, right? Many of these were proposed, many of the designs of what to do with Harriman and how to better integrate it into Albany were done in 2007 and 2008, right? So what I have urged / begged the administration to do is dust off those studies and let's build from there. So one of them is you take out all or portions of the ring road. By the way, when you take those out, you regain more acreage, like more land to develop. And again, you integrated better into Albany. So that's one proposal from 2007. The other one, which again, I think has a lot of promise, is make it integrated into the community such that it's streets. You add the what's the term you call it? Multimodal boulevards to integrate into Albany. So it makes it more connected instead of I worked up on Harriman for 5 years. I still get lost. John McDonald and I, it was a rainy night. We both separately were going to the E-Tech building, which is up at the top here, the emerging technologies building, the newest building on the Harriman campus. We both went wrong way on the ring road, in separate cars, mind you. So we both went, oh my God, we're lost. So you can still, no matter how much you've been up there. So for a lot of, and people, Patroon Creek, those that live there, I've heard one of the scientists tell me, they feel like they take their lives in their hand to get from you Albany to Ventura Creek with having to cross over all those lines. So there's a whole host of reasons on why to do this. Another one, and if anybody is seeing me do a 787 presentation, I'm suddenly just very fond of green bridges, but I want to see us take out the ring roads, but you can't take out 85. This is 85. I'm not trying to stop all traffic here, so please, I'm not really trying to scare people. But if you go over 85 with some type of land bridge, you can do a multimodal pathway connecting. That's the 27 acres there right now. It's just big parking lots. But you somehow connect. Here's Breviter. And this would be one of the ring roads if this comes out. If this comes out, here's Breviter. You start to connect it with multimodal paths, with a park, with a performance area possibly. So these are called green bridges. Some people think of them as animal crossings. So people confuse the terms because in California, they're doing these for literally for animals, to save animals from all their highways. Or to save a safe crossing for them. This is not for animals, this is for people, nothing against animals. So that's another idea of how you just better integrate, and then you help fuel your commercial corridors. So this is it in as much of a nutshell as I can get. So we've called it the research triangle. If you go back to some of those, we have, this could be Wadsworth, we've reclaimed SUNY Poly. That was transferred out to Utica, and it's taken a number of years, but the Nano College is now fully back at U Albany, so we have that. I'm forgetting what the other ones were. The other big ones. We have the E-Tech building, and what was that? School of Public Health. The School of Public Health. All of those. Right here, I believe we can really turn this into a research triangle. And by the way, this is nothing against Clifton Park. If the core is strong, the whole region benefits, right? And again, this is also, I think, helps attract talent because, it can't just be a 1960s design talent, young people want to live in destination places. They want to know there's a coffee shop or retail or housing. So sorry, just go back to that. I know she's giving me the hint to move faster. I did not get the 500,000. We started asking for that last year on. Anyway, again, budget's always full of good news. The one success we did have last year at the beginning of this year is this cuts across 5 different agencies. That's what's part of the problem on this. OGS owns the land, right? Owns the Harriman land. DOT has the oversight of transportation, has the oversight of the roads. DOH has Wadsworth. DOB has the money. And then DASNY is the one that controls all the grants. So I have spent a lot of time with wonderful cooperation from Assemblywoman McDonald and Senator Breslin, who have also worked, hand in glove with us. And by the way, at great risk, because this again was supposed to go over to Rensselaer, and huge shout out to them because that made a little bit trickier politics for them because they both Neil's district has now changed, but they both represented both sides of the river, but they've been terrific in supporting this. We briefed every agency. The good news is ESD has now been designated, Empire State Development, they have been designated as the lead on Harriman, but again, not getting that $500,000 for me was personally the most frustrating, the biggest local frustration for the budget. So as soon as session ends, we're back at this. But we, DOH, Department of Health will be the lead for Wadsworth. So that's where we are. I just want to keep saying it. Please share the draft. We're happy to share the PowerPoint. We're happy to share it with anybody. I just think it's important. I think it's important for revitalizing Albany. I think it's important for our commercial corridors. I think it's important for growing housing, businesses, talent, you know, you name it. Happy to take any questions. I know I've covered 50 issues here and I went way over, so.
I remember we supported your study, put into action changes. So this one year, I guess, we didn't get funding for that portion of it, but connecting to the rest of the city and allowing transportation to go through and connect the rest of it's great. It's no brainer for us, but is there anything we can do and how much the chance to get out of getting these things?
Now, we will try to get in next year's budget. What I'm trying now is to figure out how we just get grants and make it work anyway. I mean, hello, it's $1.7 billion. You know, my first budget said, you know, you need to, how can you build something without redesigning PHNAMay? You know, one should connect with the other. So we have, and thank you for the support on this because I was worried about some neighborhoods, you know, being worried, you know, the NIMBYism of, you know, that always comes up in any type of major proposal. And so far we've had just great feedback from I have tried to get to every single neighborhood association in the last year about at least parts of this. But it is back to the governor's office. So I may answer that a little later. Now I'm just trying to go back to people. I've talked to a couple of folks back at ESD, talking to Sandy Miskowitz, who's the head of CBTC. She's been terrific on this. You know, I don't think money should block this, but I'm quite serious. I will not support anything on Wadsworth. And I've been at this for almost 10 years.
So you
I won't support anything. Sorry, yes, yeah, right. Sorry, if my frustration is showing it was hard. I didn't think that was like, you know, you have to be relentless with everything on the budget. I let this one slide, thinking I thought we were in good shape on it. I was assured, and it ended up at a different table, health table, as opposed to an economic development table is the bottom line. And you know, I blew it. I don't know how I thought we were in better shape than we were. So but I welcome the help in the future. I've run way over, Bob. I'm sorry, Jenny. I'm sorry, Jean.
What about who's that Albany County?
Dan McCoy?
Does he see any influence?
These were state monies, and it's state-owned land and it's state-owned roads. But I've talked to him multiple times about this, and I think, you know, I don't think, you know, we've had, you know, terrific response. Again, some of this is just the changing, you know, it's been, you know, I don't need to tell anybody what's going on in state government. I mean, it's been a lot of musical chairs, and for DOH to have a different for DOH to have you know, two commissioners, even under Kathy Hochul, has been, you know, it's hard because then you just have to start over again. So, and I did a presentation before the Chamber of Commerce a few months ago with two people from DOH. One was one of the deputy commissioners. The other one was one of the deputies at Wadsworth. We've been without a director at Wadsworth for about, I lost track of the time, most of COVID, two or three, at least 2 years. They didn't even have a director. So I was there with a deputy. So a deputy commissioner and a deputy director at Wadsworth, right? Two different people who were on this presentation. Both of them had started in one was 2021, I think one was 2022, or they were both 2024. So I went, well, no wonder I'm frustrated. You know, it's great, new ideas, but that just, so then you're always starting over. And so this project, to say this project has been tough, you know, it's an understatement. But again, the good news is the money is there now. It's all there because it was becoming a phase 1, phase 2, because the 750 wasn't going to cover it all. So that's the good news. The good news is, and this governor, you know, is not trying to move, you know, not trying to zero it out. The money is there. I think we will go forward. I know we overuse the term transformative, but of local projects, my big three, our 787, and we did get that 5 million last year. That was, that took me 3 budgets. That was, that was a 3-year effort. 5 million for 787. This is the other big project, my other big local one that, we drop everything for is the port, the Albany port. So, again, that is 500 jobs, local jobs, a lot of entry level, good paying jobs. So those are the big 3 in terms of where I really believe we can change, so much. We can really change the economics here and really just, they're just, it's,
So what do you
I know
think?
there's a lot going on, like a lot of negative things in the press, on and on and on, but you can't help but when you look at the truly transformative power of any of those economically, there's a lot of tremendous optimism.
So one thing I'm trying to understand is, I saw that grid idea and bringing in commercial properties and bringing in housing and stuff. Do you see the state selling some of that land, or are they going to retain control of the whole piece of land, and then different, development will take place?
It's an excellent question, Carolyn. Right now, I don't think anything is for sale because that's, but what I do think some of it should be commercialized. If we went back to the, don't get comfortable. If you go back to the one slide, Mike Tucker, does anybody remember Mike Tucker? He did a lot of the work in 2007, 2008. If you go back to, yes, perfect.
Yeah.
A lot of this, you see a lot of green, like look at all those parking lots. We really do need to get out of the 1960s and think of, think of if that was housing, which we all know we need. Think if that were some other businesses, but at this point, again, my focus is just trying to get more attention on the 27 acres. Depending on what audience I'm in front of, I try not to scare people about the rest, but I do think, we talked to Mike Tucker, there were some really good designs, and all of this, Jack McEnany, who served for 20 years before me, had the bill for a pilot payment for Harriman that would have, I think it was 11 or 12 million dollars, which ultimately then became the 12 million in capital aid that we had to go to bat for every year for Mayor Sheehan, and it's been, that was usually the top request we had every year. I had to throw away every one of my budget requests to get that 12 million. It was the top request. This governor has been great. It's up to 15 million now, and we've gotten it. But if you commercialized any of it, I used to say this to Rob O'Higa, the head of the budget, the division of budget. If you can commercialize any of this, you help, relieve this capital grant need. But again, I don't want to. That's getting, you have to go back to 2007, 2008. I'd be happy right now with just starting to get rid of ring roads and.
Thank you.
Answer.
Yeah, that's great.
First of all, I just want to say thank you for all that you do for us.
And all of it to work with all of you.
Continue to secure capital city fund for us.
Yeah, no, that's been great too. This governor's been tremendous with it.
Yeah, I just want to be some working with your staff, as a constituent member on board this avenue that was trying to get funding for homeowner rebate check, and she finally got the check actually last week. I mean, it's Tammy, she wanted to say thank you, so really appreciate it.
I
Just my person, this most with 77 advocacy, really appreciate what you're doing that front, and how can the city, support your efforts to reimagine 77?
I think that because the 5 million fund, the contract was signed in March. Patient's never been my strong suit, but that, once that money went to DOT, they now control it. The briefest I can be on that, so I think it's underway. We hope to have at least some preliminary report. I would hope by early next year, but we will keep pushing. I have strongly urged that we look at short-term projects. If you really talk about some of the big issues with 787, we'll all be retired, right? You know, because some of these are multi-year efforts. I don't really want to be having this conversation in 20 years, even 10 years. I believe we can do some parts of it. Either transfer some parts, which one could, some parts can be done, as well as, you know, I think you do a land bridge in the short term while you're trying to figure out what to do with some of the main. You know, we can't eliminate a major thoroughfare, particularly because the port, we spent millions on that port. So we're always gonna need a major thoroughfare at 787, but where we can, you know, boulevard, some of it, take down some of the bridges or repurpose. So but I also think you can go over it on parts and you can go under it with the canal. And I think the canal should be one of the first things out of the gate. The lot one, we have lot one right there near Central Warehouse. So decades, right? Decades of looking at the Central Warehouse eyesore. Think if we, think if we opened up lot one that's right there, if we unearth it, you know, here is Central Warehouse, the original lot one is less than a quarter block over, quarter block. Yeah, I mean, it's like 200 yards from Central Warehouse. So every developer has failed, every owner has failed at Central Warehouse. Let's hope this current one, Redburn, will have more progress. But if you really turn that into a destination place, you know, so you can go under. So I say you go over 787, go under it while you're figuring out how to take parts of it down. So yeah, I am really going to keep pushing for some short-term projects that we don't have to wait for 10 years to totally convert. Because as you know, if you look at Syracuse, and it is the same, it's the same contractor as Syracuse, which gave me a little bit of pause. The I-81, they've been fighting over that for, I think it's well over 10 years. I don't want to keep fighting over it. Let's just. Yeah, no, and thanks for your support on that. It's much appreciated. And
I don't.
Bob, I'm feeling terrible with Bob, and I've got to run to this. Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to take, yeah.
Yeah, because you need to go. That's
Yeah, right. I know.
But before you
Don't
go.
talking off.
And thank you very much. And for everybody here that does not know, you know, our assembly member gets honored all the time. She's actually being honored in our neighborhood next week at the College of St. Rose on June 1st. It's a fundraiser for scholarships, and I just checked the tickets, but tickets are, it's an important thing to help St. Rose, to honor our assembly member. I urge everyone to try to be there, to support our assembly member, but you gotta go to the website, I can email it to you. And because tickets are like about to be not sold anymore. Okay, so that's, so.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
thank you, thank you.
It's a deep honor, and it's also what Leah's significant other, Dennis, I should add, and especially with Virginia. One of my bills is to get IDs for those exiting jails. I was just told today, but probably won't get it this year. So I'm thinking of you because we've been working that.
No,
It's one of the many bills. So. Yeah, the Senate, yeah. So anyway, I'll follow up on you, but thank you. And thanks everybody. Sorry to rush through this, and I'm really sorry to go over, but I welcome any feedback on this and any questions, anything you need. I just want to please share it because I do think it's important that this community, meaning Albany region and more, understand that it's important we do it right this time. Any of these investments be done right.
You know, Jenny Hilling and I want to express our appreciation to you for the support that you and Assembly Member McDonald, also the support that the building provided for Albany LEAD. We talked about it in a couple more minutes, but we know you have countless demands on your time, countless requests for support, and we're very grateful.
Well, Bob, thank you. That's a personal one for me. I did statewide legislation on that in 2014 that we haven't still fully funded, but I'm so grateful. And as you said, especially to John and Senator Breslin, that we can at least get that local funding because, you know, as we all learned, especially in the last couple of years, you know, especially after some horrific murders and incidences, here in New York and around the country, diversion matters. And a word that I don't think, LEAD is law enforcement assisted diversion, something that no one really understood when we were first doing the bill. Actually, I did a lot of it with the former police commissioner, Brendan Cox, and now I think everyone understands, especially with those who are mental health challenges, drug addiction and homelessness. Those are all nonviolent crimes, and diversion is so essential. So thank you for your tireless work and making sure that we don't forget it. I wish I had you working on that 500 million now. Right, thank you, everybody.
Safely, don't speak. Okay, so now we're gonna learn all about the LEAD program. We have Bob Ward and Jen Hewlins, who are co-directors of the Albany LEAD program. They have literature, and I will leave it to them to describe it, although it stands for Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion.
Thank you, John.
It was pronounced LEAD, right?
Yes, it is.
We don't say that.
Not bad.
Okay.
Some of you know me, I'm Bob Ward, I live on South Pine Avenue. I grew up on South Main Avenue. Very glad to be in the neighborhood now. Jenny Hewling and I are co-project managers of Albany LEAD, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion, as somebody in the Fahy's and just mentioned. Very simply, LEAD was begun in Seattle back in 2011. A few years later, people in Albany started realizing that this was an idea that we should pursue here. And it came to fruition under Mayor Sheehan. It's an initiative that represents a partnership of the mayor, the Albany Police Department, the district attorney, David Soares, the county executive McCoy, Dr. Alice Green of the Center for Law and Justice, and Anthony Capice, who runs the Central Avenue Business Improvement District. Very simply, what LEAD means is that when Officer Gaspery or some of his colleagues in the Albany Police Department are responding to a situation where someone might be arrested on certain low-level offenses, low-level nonviolent charges, instead of arresting that person, if they believe that this individual is there because of situations that relate to mental illness, to substance use, homelessness, instead of arresting that person, it probably will help the community more in the long run, and certainly will help that individual more if we can, instead of arresting and prosecuting and perhaps sending that individual to jail, we can help that individual get treatment, help them deal with the issues that make their lives so difficult. And so that's what LEAD is. LEAD connects individuals in that situation with case managers from Catholic Charities who work with them at an incredible level of detail. Every 2 weeks, we have a meeting. We had one this afternoon, again, where Officer Gaspery and Jenny and myself were, along with folks, the various Albany County departments, mental health, social services, probation, public defender's office, and others, the Albany police, the case managers from Catholic Charities, talking about specific individuals who have been diverted into LEAD or referred into LEAD, and what is going on with this individual, what are the needs, how can we help? So since Albany LEAD was established, was implemented in 2016, more than 320 individuals have been diverted away from arrest. Last year, we began a new pathway into LEAD known as social contact referrals, so that if I am in a situation where I'm not necessarily going to be arrested right now, but the Albany police or certain other officials believe that they know that I have perhaps been arrested in the past, may have been in jail in the past, am doing certain things that might get me arrested again in the future, I can be referred into LEAD and have the same access to the case manager who will help me deal with the issues as I would like to deal with them. If I would like to get treatment, it will help with that. If I have lost my ID card because I've been living out on the street or I've been robbed, and because I've lost my ID card, I can't access certain benefits that I'm otherwise entitled to, can't find a place to live. They will help me deal with those issues. So again, in very simple form, we talk about services rather than arrests. Again, for individuals who experience mental illness, substance use, homelessness, poverty. And this is an idea that is intended really to do two things. First, to help folks get the services they need so that they can lead better lives and be less likely to engage with the police and the criminal justice system in the future. And secondly, it's an effort to change policing. And as you know, this is a conversation that is going on in many communities around our country. Albany has been a leader in this. Albany was the third jurisdiction in the United States to implement LEAD. And now there are more than 80 across the country, because this idea that there are a lot of folks who get caught up in the criminal justice system who are not really going to be changed that way. And so we have this cycle where people get arrested, they end up spending some time in jail, coming back into the community, and neither they have been helped nor has the community been helped. So LEAD is an effort to change that paradigm. And again, Albany has been a leader in it. We are now in conversations with folks in Coast and Water for LEAD who plan to start LEAD program a little bit later this year. So again, it's an idea that is growing. We wanted to talk with you folks, both to talk about the program in general, but also to talk a little bit about how, if you are in a situation such as I've described, where someone is doing something that you might call the police about, maybe LEAD is something for you to consider. So Jenny and I, as I've said, are co-project managers. Jenny is has primary responsibility for operations and client services of Albany LEAD, and she can talk much more knowledgeably than I about some of the conversations that we end up having with folks like Officer Gaspari and others at the Albany Police, and with the case managers who provide the client services.
Yes, thank you for having us here. You know, we think it's really important that that everyone know, have this information ahead of time before you're in a situation where, you know, something scary has happened or something bad has happened, right? You know, we've had folks where someone may have been trespassing on their property and they feel afraid and they call the police come out and talk with them, and the person is very confused. They're under the influence. They, you know, they're not intending to harm anyone. Of course, it can be scary for you, but an officer might offer you, you know, this person could be diverted on this possible charge. You know, we could either arrest them and they're probably not going to be held in jail. They're going to be back out on the street, and they're not going to get any help necessarily. Or we could have you, you know, divert them, and then a case manager is going to come out and talk to this person, assess their needs and help connect them. So, you know, we think it's really helpful for you to have the information ahead of time so that you're not trying to make that decision when, you know, things are in your face and they're really intense. I came from the Office of Mental Health. You all took me from the state, so congrats. You know, it usually goes the other way. And, you know, I was there when hospitals and beds have been closing. People used to be in hospitals when they were struggling with mental illness. And that's not the case more and more. Right? We're seeing people in our communities who demonstrate behaviors that might scare us and that we're not used to seeing. And folks don't have a lot of access to outpatient supports. It's really hard for them to find help on their own. It's hard for us to find help figuring out insurance and who we can go see and what we need. So, you know, we're seeing more and more instances where folks need help and it's the police who are called to respond. And police can't fix this, right? So these are social issues. So we have a social fix. We currently only have 2 case managers. They are angels, they are amazing. We need more people, like every industry. But you know, we are here, we are continuing to grow, and we're working with folks who have been going through this for decades, for their whole life. They need really long-term services, very intensive services. And so that's what we do best. And, you know, if you're in a situation, if someone you know is in a situation, call the police. The police say, hey, this person could be diverted. That's what we're talking about. That's what we do. And that's how we believe many folks can get some support.
Just ask a question, our neighborhood tends to have, well, up near the stores, there are individuals who obviously need help. There's a young guy who's in Tri-City, as you can tell, he's really drug addicted, and we call the police for that situation. And there are other people who just, you know, if you engage them, they'll tell you, well, I need a job, I need this, I need that. So it's not like you call the police, but I mentioned various things that they could do, you know, but they don't seem to be that motivated, but they seem to need help. So there's, can anybody, I mean, there's nothing on here saying you call anybody, or so. Is that the kind of situation? I mean, it's not necessarily, I mean, they're not doing anything illegal, but they obviously need some help. So what do you do with that?
That's a good question. So we don't have a pathway for community members to make referrals. We have grown, like Bob said, it initially was police could only use this if they were going to make an arrest, and now we've broadened it so that police who are aware of someone can just make a referral. And we hope to continue growing and broadening. We're not in a position to do that right now, community members, but that is a conversation that we might, you know, down the road. So we are law enforcement assisted. It goes through law enforcement specifically. But, you know, I think we're only one small piece of the pie. We need more services, outreach services for Albany in general. And so, you know, I think your voices can be really important in sharing that with the city, with the county, that we need even more folks. We need outreach people who can be in these areas that you know of, engaging folks. Our services are completely voluntary also. Someone can be offered LEAD and say, no, not for me. We're not going to force them. We have had folks who maybe an officer diverted or referred a year ago, 2 years ago, and just this week they're ready, right? And they come back and, oh, is it still okay for me to get help through you? Yeah. So people aren't always ready either. And that, you know, that can be really frustrating.
So all the police, I'm sorry, I'm saying.
If you email me or call me, myself and also guys over there are familiar with. We'll probably go out that night or whatever you contact us, and we'll go out to the HF party and see if they're A, referral appropriate, or B, you know, get them ready for the next day.
So all the people, all the police are trained.
Yeah.
Okay.
Officer Kathleen, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience with referring someone to LEAD?
It's very easy. I've been working with Officer Geisel on it for about 3 or 4 weeks now, and we've had some people go through some repeat guys, but it's literally if they're in the middle of a crime, or they're just, you know, looking, you know, they're just on hard times, and they're looking for housing or looking for food assistance because they have food insecurity. Literally, it's a phone call. Like with Catholic Charities, right over Catholic Charities, and within 15-20 minutes, we have a caseworker there with us doing an intake on that person in the field. They set up a follow-up appointment for the next day, and then part of it is on that individual follow-up the next day. If not, they go on a list.
We'll go looking.
And we go looking for it. So, and you know, they come up every now and then where we try to locate them. So, you know, if you're looking for a good point of contact, use us.
Done.
Who was funding the case man position? That the city of Albany?
That's a great question. So one of my duties, I have a little more responsibility for the budget. It's really been a patchwork right from the beginning. Again, we started in April 2016, and so there are case managers. There are costs for the position that Jenny and I hold. the Albany Police Department incur a lot of overtime. Most of that the city supports, but a little bit of it is supported through a federal grant that Albany County received in 2020. So last year, we were awarded a second major federal grant for $1.25 million that is going to support some additional case management costs, going to support a major evaluation of the program by Dr. Tomoko Udo from the School of Public Health and her colleagues. It will help support the expansion into codes of water leak. So we have had some funding from private foundations. There has been some support from the city of Albany and from the Albany County budget. There has last year, back in 2022, around this time when the legislature adopted the budget for the state fiscal year that just ended, Assemblymember Fahy and Assemblymember McDonald were instrumental in the first state grant to Albany LEAD, $300,000. And they were able to do that again in this new state budget for the second year in a row. So that's a very important step. Going forward, we're like many programs, we are going to be continuing to look for state funding or additional federal funding. We know that as a result of the opioid settlements that the state has received, Albany County has received from the major pharmaceutical manufacturers, there is some very significant funding available, again, to both the county and the state, more limited amount to the city of Albany. We're hoping that some of that will be used for programs like LEAD that are directly trying to address, help people address the terrible problems that have been caused by opioid abuse. Those are some of the sources that we're now using and looking at going forward.
Okay, so when the services that are provided, who pays for them?
The services, so the service that Albany LEAD provides is connecting me with a case manager. Then separately.
Okay, no, I mean, who provides the counseling service? Who provides?
So we do care coordination, which means our case managers assess what you want to work on and they find resources and then they'll go with you to attend the resources. So they'll go to therapists and medical providers and refer to substance use. So they are connectors, really. They don't provide treatment themselves. In our federal grant, we are going to have a clinician join our team by the end of this year for 2 years. So we will have some street-based clinical services through Albany LEAD. That's the first time. We've always referred to other treatment options, but they're very scarce, honestly. It's very hard to get appointments right now. So we're going to be providing some therapy wherever people are through a federal grant.
So if you refer somebody to a therapist, they're not going to do it for anything, right? They're not going to do it for nothing.
One of the primary things that the case manager spend a lot of time doing, John, is helping, if I'm the client, helping me get signed up for Medicaid, helping me sign up for housing. The majority of our clients either are currently or have been street homeless or living in very insecure housing, which we know is a growing problem. And so again, helping folks access those benefits to which they're entitled, food assistance, SNAP benefits, another very common one. I mentioned ID cards. I've lost my ID card. That's a nightmare if you don't have a birth certificate. So basically helping folks deal with all of these needs, and as Jenny said, connecting them to those many services. And some of these folks, they just really need a wide array of services, particularly if it's someone who is experiencing both mental illness and substance use, that combination, which is unfortunately relatively common in our clientele, can be just extremely challenging over a long period of time.
It would seem to me that instead of you guys having to go out and sponsor money, that the county Department of Health should be providing this service, right?
Yeah, so that's sort of a broad systemic conversation that we hope LEAD will help stimulate and one day help to answer. As Jenny said, when our case managers try to connect clients for mental health treatment, and any of us who have had mental illness in our family may know this. It's the availability of psychiatric help and other mental health care is just severely strained. Dr. Stephen Giordano, the Albany County Mental Health Commissioner, is one of our key stakeholders and the folks who work in the Albany County Mental Health Department. And they will tell you, we just heard about this at our meeting earlier today, how incredibly strained that system is, but partly because, like many industries, if you will, they have had severe problems finding people to hire. But even before, that more recent development, the services are just not broad enough and strong enough to support the needs out there. Good questions, comments. I know we're running late. Owusu.
Yeah, this was second for you. It was such a wonderful program here in our city, and Councilwoman wants to continue to advocate with the mayor to continue to support the rest of the county. I know that assistance that she would give them $100,000 to the league program, so people advocate for it, because at the end of the day, someone go and not saying I was hoping you were sitting in jail, but it costs taxpayers more having someone who's having mental health issues sitting in the Albany County Jail in the city. So definitely want to thank you for what you're doing, and just in a way that we can continue to support. Please don't hesitate to not just come to the mayor, come to the council members, the public safety committee during budget season. Just come, tell us all about how great the program is and all the positives and cons and to partnership moving forward.
Thank you. Our annual report is out today, so we'll be sending it your way to check it out. It's on our website, albanylead.org, for anyone to see and learn more. Thank you.
Do most people stick with it? I mean, do they, that end up in this program? Do they, a good chunk of them, pull out of it, I guess, or it helps?
That's a good question. It's some people are here for a short term, they get some needs met, they move on, they might come back. And some people, I mean, we're talking about our client number 49, 99, they were diverted in 2016, 2017. They're still connected. Our client number 1, we talked about who checks in still. We've had just over 350 people engaged since 2016. Last year, our case managers worked with 181. So a number of folks for quite some period. The great thing is, once you're in lead, you're always in lead, so you can always come back. So people, they're living their lives, they're good. They don't need to talk to us all the time, but if something happens, they can come right back.
Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
So I'm going to be very brief, and then we're going to go to a report out from the neighborhood engagement officer, and that's very perhaps if you would need to, but I just want to bring up a couple things, what's going on now. We have been talking about the youth violence that has occurred in Madison Park for some time, getting a lot of support from a lot of different sources. And we've talked about, as the mayor has, as the police chief, getting programs in Madison Park rather than what is going on there, unfortunately, which is turning bad many times. And there is now, I've shared with the board several emails and memos on this, but the GKNY Mentor League is now active in the park. They began on May 15th. They're going initially through June 22nd, but they, as it looks now, will be there throughout the summer months as well. Funding is being procured from Albany County, as the policy is helping them get that grant. And the city, I also believe, is providing a substantial amount of money. So you may be more aware of that with coming new. We ourselves may consider donating some as well. But the good thing is this group is in the park. They originally provided programming for 18 years and older, to adults, in other words, helping them with basketball, socialization, and getting back into occupational status, employment status, if that was issued. Having them in the park at any time is very helpful because there are programs going on there. responsible people, and it just changes the whole atmosphere of the park. They're now doing programming for middle school students, and they really have programs that go throughout the educational range and for adult. We can't describe it all in detail, but we do hope to have them here at our June meeting, which is June 15th. So we'll talk about that, but I wanted to bring you up to date on that. And the other thing is we are still expecting a capital project to take place on 2 blocks of Hudson Avenue between South Lake and Ontario. We're still pushing to make sure we get some green infrastructure, some of the greening of the blacktop strips that we have been fighting for decades, long before I was here. And well, I wish I had progress to report on that. So we do not have that report yet. We are still hoping, I hope not in vain, for a meeting, because out of room, certainly a neighborhood association should be consulted on an issue of this importance. Now, Pat Fahy is a role model in many ways to many of us. I don't know if we're going to chain ourselves to bulldozers, but I will leave that to Carolyn and decision, but perhaps as an action item. We will hopefully we'll be able to make some progress there. Even if we do not, having the sidewalks redone and getting some 28 trees placed in there would be a help, but we could do so much more, and we really want to make sure we get these principles listened to and hopefully attended to by the city. So that's my quick report out. No questions will be allowed. It doesn't look like we have them anyway. What I'd like to do now is turn it over to two NEU officers. We have Lenny Gaspar. We all have his email and phone number. If you don't, I can give them to you. We have a second NEU officer, Will Pierce, and I do have his email, but I don't think he has a settled phone number yet. But as soon as he does, I'm sure we will get it. And they are folks you can rely on, whether it's for some of the issues we've been talking about later. Anytime you have an issue that deserves police attention or even might deserve police attention, they're good people to reach out to. So we hope to do that. With that, I'll go to Officer Lenny Gaspar.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
How's everybody doing? Everybody enjoy the tool chest?
Yes.
Yes. Great. So Pine Hills, things have been relatively, I don't like dealing in absolutes, because when absolutes, I deal in absolutes, bad things happen. So no major crimes to report in the Pine Hills area in the past 2 or 3 weeks, which is very, very good. It appears that we're still experiencing some car larcenies, and a lot of the crimes that are occurring are being committed by juveniles, some of which are affiliated with LaSalle. We are aware of those. We've been working with LaSalle to address these concerns. LaSalle is also aware that these juveniles are essentially going missing from the facility, and they know exactly where they are. And I think that attributed a lot to some of the problems that were occurring at Madison Park. What can be done about that is, you know, we bring them back to LaSalle. The problem is LaSalle doesn't have a way to physically hold them there. So as soon as we leave, sometimes they can just walk right back out and go right back to where they were. So it's a very challenging proposition, keeping them to where they need to be. They've also been committing some of the burglaries in the Midtown Pine Hills area. The smoke shop at the corner of Elberon, and well, that was done by juveniles from the south twice in one night. So that seems to be where most of the crimes are occurring, and it's very, very difficult to prosecute juvenile crimes, because we arrest them, we bring them in, they go to family court, and a lot of times it just gets settled out in family court. If you've ever watched anything occur in family court, it's very disappointing, to say the least, because they're juveniles or minors, but you see these repeat offenders go in, and it gets sealed right up. System we have, it's not perfect, it's far from it, but that's a system. Also seeing some car larcenies popping up on our end, so obviously if you have valuables in your vehicles, don't keep them in your vehicles, make sure your cars are locked, don't keep your spare key in your car. Somebody will jump in it and take it for a ride. That's about it. If anybody's on vacation this summer, please feel free to let us know. I'll be more than happy to do property checks for any of your neighbors. And we also had a great meeting last week with Luke and a lot of constituents from Pine Hills strategizing for next fall with the Hudson, Hamilton areas. So did I say your thunder?
No, you're good.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about the basketball, but John covered that, so it's good, it's hopefully we can keep that park busy and it'll keep a lot of the problems way down associated with that park. Are there any questions from anyone?
How come this LaSalle thing, is this always been a problem, or
Oh,
is this a change in policy? Because when they used to live over there, you seem to have a lot of security.
They do have a lot of security. Unfortunately, their protocols don't allow that. The staff are constrained by their protocols. They can't physically restrain these kids. And I've seen it firsthand. We had juveniles about, I want to say back in March, beginning of March, who were inside of a vacant building right next to the Ontario Mart there. And we brought them back. We had 3 staff outside with us. They were refusing to go in. We finally got them to go in, and the staff looked at us. They're like, as soon as we leave, they're going to run right out. And not 10 minutes after we left, we got another missing juvenile report from that facility. So they don't have ways to keep them locked in. They know how to get out, and they know exactly where they are.
Yeah, because I thought they used to lock them in.
Yeah, they probably don't anymore.
I
mean, it's just
or do they not, or do the kids just know how to get
it's one of the two. I'm not really clear, but I know that they know how to get out. It's just they be chasing them all night.
Yeah.
It becomes almost like a battle of attrition.
And that's probably the solution that family court had to them not being able to stay home, and this is not actually.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
It's frustrating to say the least.
Was Al reviewing their practices and their protocol?
We've asked them to, but again, I don't know exactly who governs them. I would say it's probably the state.
Yeah, they're overseen by the state.
Are they? Okay.
Oh,
So, that would probably have to come from a statewide level in terms of their policies and procedures, but again, I don't see it changing a whole lot, not right now anyway.
Seems to me that they should not be receiving. Food like this, they're not equipped to handle.
I don't disagree. No, but it is a problem.
To bring to the attention of somebody?
We've spoken to them too, so they're aware of it.
It's actually a suggestion for John, the association, maybe it would well the family court judges to come speak at a meeting sometime.
Yeah, or somebody who.
That's an idea.
Well, some agency is referring students of this population to that school, right? They shouldn't be doing it.
But they may be referring them to other schools where similar things are happening. The other thing that I absorbed from someone, and I'm not sure whether it's you, Lenny, but essentially a lot of there's one kid in particular who just keeps getting out.
Yes.
And there have been some others. It's not like all of LaSalle.
Right. It's generally like the same 5 or 6 kids. Yeah, it's not a whole bunch of them. But one of the kids we were seeing at Madison Park, and I haven't seen him there much lately at all. So I don't know what happened to him, if he got transferred out or what, but
It is a problem generally in schools and elsewhere as we have society progressed and made more rules about what you can and cannot do. You simply just can't wrestle student or anyone there and it's like good on the job, you just can't do that. So it's for good and bad reasons, but I think it would make sense to see if we can get some more people to speak about this. Any other questions?
No, just a quick statement, this is like, it's interesting, even some of the neighborhood kids who, you know, they're not the best of the best, they complain about the South.
It's an epidemic.
So we gotta get this.
Yeah.
All enjoyed that.
And that could still happen, but that's with Luke and the students who are not, who don't have a right to be at the state university. So it's a
Yeah.
different
Right,
dynamic.
yeah.
It might be worth having a conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
But no, I just wanna say thank you too, because I've been seeing you at Madison Park, like. every time
Oh, I've
I'm
been living there, I need to build a house there.
Okay, I
Yeah.
want to have a quick report out from Luke on some of the things we mentioned. It's important that everyone feels that it's rapidly.
Thanks, Lenny.
Yeah, thank you, Lenny.
Okay, so Lenny mentioned our meeting last week with the Committee on University Community Relations. So we met basically to brainstorm and strategize ideas for August, right? Which is when our students return. Last year, and actually the year before that, we saw a significant uptick in violence. We saw some very disruptive situations that happened on Hudson with a large number of individuals. And so it was a really good conversation. We basically summarized what took place over the last couple of years and what was already being done. And then we started to brainstorm some ideas. Some things that came up included incorporating landlords into the walks that we're already doing, specifically late in the evenings, right before those massive gatherings take place. So right now, the Albany Police Department, university staff, College of St. Rose go out and we do door to doors on Hudson, on Hamilton, on Quail, and Ontario at about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. On Friday night, you know, Saturday night, kind of talking to residents about what the expectations are and also how to be safe. We really feel like bringing in the landlords and having that as a possible tool could make a significant difference, right? Helping the students and the permanent residents understand that if you hold a 100-person gathering, you could face an eviction, right? Additionally, we really want to try to publicize other events that are happening in the city and throughout the region that our students may be interested in taking part in at very late. So whether it's a concert that's happening at MVP, or if there's a comedy club that's open, or you know another venue that's holding something at 2 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, we need to make sure that we're providing outlets for our students to be able to do things because they want to socialize, right? But doing out of the area, right? So not in Hudson. And so, to be honest with you, Barrero, Owusu, if you guys have 5 minutes after the meeting in the parking lot, I'd love to be able to catch your ear for a sidebar on this exact same topic. And then additionally, we're trying to figure out other events that we can plan ourselves, right? We know that we are doing some things on the footprint on the main campus, but working with the College of St. Rose to figure out alternative programming that we can do to hold people on the uptown campus and right there at the college. The next meeting in June, which we typically don't meet in June, but we decided to meet in June and July for CUCR to kind of continue this dialogue and this conversation. Again, 3 months from now, right, we're down here. So we need to have some solutions before that takes place. So if you're interested in taking part in those dialogues, we'd love to have you. It's always via Zoom, 7 o'clock, second Thursday of the month. So second Thursday in June, Monday, we'll see you again, and we'll pick up where we left off. John, I want to thank you for coming to a charrette that we had on Alumni Quad. I don't know if it was last month, the month before that. But the University of Albany played host to the Society for College and University Planners, part of a regional conference for individuals that are very experienced on kind of repurposing, right, buildings that may not necessarily be utilized. And so what we did was we brought in their collective minds and we tapped them to brainstorm ideas for Alumni Quad. As you all know, Alumni Quad has been underutilized well before the pandemic. And to no one's surprise, you know, over the course of the next 5 years, we really don't project that we're going to be utilizing in any meaningful way. So we got to figure out what we're going to do with it, right? And obviously that involves the neighborhood, it involves meeting with our common council members, city of Albany, and trying to get a solution that works for everybody. So that charrette was a very good first dialogue. I envision that it's going to take a number of those types of dialogue before we actually come to a viable solution. Right now, we're compiling some of the suggestions that those individuals who work in the field had. And as you can imagine, it was everything from, oh, let's redo the housing and let's try and re-incentivize students to live there, all the way up to let's bring in vendors and do a farmer's market and make it an amphitheater and all sorts of things, you know, a kitchen table, you know. So I am looking forward to seeing that final report, and as soon as I have it, then I'm going to summarize it for John and kick it back up to you guys, so you'll see exactly what was recommended. And then very quickly, graduation happened this past weekend, a little over 3,000 students. They come from 21 different states, 24 different countries. 30% were first generation, and 56% were women. So that was a pretty cool stat that I found. But beyond that, showcase, which I had talked about during our last meeting, happened on April 27th. It was our first venture there. We had a little over 1,500 students present on their research occurring across the footprint. We're going to do it again next year. It was so successful, and I really would like to see as many of you come out to that as possible. Where we invited the elementary schools and the school for high schools. They showed up with reports. It was an amazing day. And the energy on campus was excellent. I want to give a shout out to Carolyn. Phenomenal community dinner. Ken and the off-campus ambassador team led point for us. And for all of you that came out, I hope you enjoyed the food. It was a good night.
Really, Ken and his team.
They did all the work.
They did a great job.
They
They did a great
Yeah,
job. Yes. So hope to see you again in the fall. PLL, the professional lacrosse, will be on campus June 3rd and June 4th. So if you're around the campus, it's going to be very busy. It'll be a sellout crowd. If you like lacrosse, get your tickets now. They're available on the website. But there again, we'll have a lot of different individuals from middle schoolers all the way up to the big leagues coming out for that event. And then I just wanted to mention that we're going to be working with the city of Albany again this year in summer youth employment program. Jonathan Jones, University of Players with their Ready Set Goal program, and various different summer camps on the U Albany footprint. You'll see us at Tulip Fest. Well, you saw me at Tulip Fest. We were out there. Tattoos, various different movie nights, the Alive at Fives, Pride, Juneteenth, Latin Fest, Dad Fest. We're going to be all over the place this summer. So if you see us, stop by, get yourself a free sticker, maybe a free Albany tattoo. And the dog, we got the dog friend, we got the Albany, we got Damien, we got so. But yes, definitely drop in and say hi. And that's it.
Excellent. Now it's time for our elected officials. Lucy Lemon, a council member.
All right, good evening, everyone. Yeah, just some of the things that are happening in the neighborhood. I'm not sure if anyone saw some of the new lights that we have on Madison. Yeah, it's a little bit brighter, which is good, but it looks really beautified Madison Avenue with the historical building. I think especially when you're between like South Lake to Quell Street with all those historical buildings, I think it really fits. But they get all the lights from all the way from South Lake all the way to Partridge. So it's, we're really excited, and the neighbors are really excited about it. So I'm happy to.
Yeah.
And another thing too is that Water Oil, where Bard and Baker used to be, they're moving, and there's going to be Motor Oil Coffee, which is Joe Bonilla, somebody we're very familiar with. They've been expanding. They just recently opened a store downtown Albany on State Street. They just applied for like a license with the city, like a 30-day waiver. So that's something that they plan to have, wine and beer at that space, having some jazz nights, and also they'll apply for a cabaret, a whole host of other things. So we're really excited for that. And I'm pretty sure he's going to let us know when everything is taking place. So everyone is informed.
Okay. People, I was gonna say, can we advocate with Rick LaJoy for there to be more seating? Because that's a big problem, that is not enough seating, and he didn't let the last couple of coffee houses have ample seating.
Yeah.
So if there's any way.
Well, because the best 25.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
So,
That other one open, I was very surprised.
Martin Baker got a little more.
Yeah, they increased it to 25, but I think the city of state law, I'm not sure where the law lies, but if you have one single bathroom.
Yes, the bathroom thing.
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
Let's figure it out. We get yeah.
Yeah, I remember, but then suddenly Martin Baker got more seats.
They got more seated, yeah. Say that on camera. But no, that'll be great.
It's not gonna be long.
I'm not. I was just looking at the application just now. It might be.
It's gonna be called motor oil. I don't understand it,
Motor
but
oil,
for
man.
some reason, coffee is now motor oil, death wish, coffee for now. It doesn't matter. It seems that's what's wanted.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. I know some people were concerned that it might be, sit vacant for a long time, but I'm glad that they're really moving forward, steam ahead, where he's even texting elected officials in the mayor's office to kind of, let's go, so he's really excited, to open. As relates to legislation, working with Alfredo Bauer and others, we increased, we have inclusionary housing, I gave that report at the last meeting. Some legislation I'm also working on is anti-loitering. And it's going to the Public Safety Committee that have further discussions about this. I know the police chief is going to attend a public safety meeting. I'm open to any amendments, but I think it's really needed, particularly not just for the business, but just for the quality of life of the neighborhood. When you have someone standing in front of your store for hours not moving, you want to make it clear guidelines so the police department knows how to handle it, what to do in these situations. So look forward to working with the police department and my colleagues to address this. And then lastly, just going to have a cleanup in the neighborhood first week of June. Again, this is, where most of the neighbors are out of the Midtown Pine Hills neighborhood. So just try to see if we can do some type of cleanup the first Saturday of June. So stay tuned for that. It'll be a promotion taking place. Outside of that, I'm open to taking questions. Movies in the song, we spoke about that already, right? Yeah.
June 9th.
June 9th. Yeah. And the sprinklers in Richfield Park, yeah, I'm not sure if people have been there, but the construction is taking place still. So really excited for that.
Thank you again for the lights,
Oh,
especially all the way to Parker.
yeah.
I am going to be quick tonight. That's love to have the speakers tonight. But biggest thing for me, that's one of the biggest thing for me right now, is the funding for more programs at Madison Park. And John talked about it already, but I also want to, throughout this summer, I want to have more programs there, more events going on there at Madison Park, so that we can have like both adults and things to do for both adults, parents, and children all together. Other thing, so that's for the legislative grants program. One thing that I've worked on that the legislature passed last month is called the Albany Safe Camp Program, Albany County Safe Camp Program. It's a resolution that I introduced in the legislature and was co-authored by my friend and colleague Sam Fahy, but I'm the prime sponsor of the resolution to establish the Albany Safe Camp Program. And what the Safe Camp Program does is the Albany County Sheriff would create a portal, which is like a website for residents and businesses to register their privately owned exterior camera, like outdoor cameras, so that whenever there is a crime in an area or within a vicinity of that exterior camera, the sheriff department and the police departments can know who to contact to see if they can use the footage of those cameras. Now, this is going to be totally voluntary, and when the officers come to you to ask for it, you do not have to give it to them. But I mean, if you are signing up for it, that means you are pretty much willing to give it to the sheriff again. And if that is going to help in solving crime, then I understand why you wouldn't want to. But yeah, that is what the resolution does. It allows them to create this portal so that we can have more efficient ways of fighting crime and reducing gun violence. This is especially for gun violence because we've seen a lot of that recently in Albany County, the city of Albany especially, and most recently more in the Pine Hills neighborhood also. So that's something that I have worked on, and we are hoping to have probably a press conference on it sometime next month, so that we can bring notification to the entire public that this is something that is ongoing. It's something that is being done across the United States in places where they've had increases in crime recently. So yeah, that's something I'm working on. I'm also working on my teleworking legislation that I spoke to before, but I mean, when the time comes, I'll speak more on that. Any questions for me? Yes.
How would that work with landlords versus tenants? So if the landlord owns the building, wants it installed, gets it installed, tenants are refusing to give us access. So who would control essentially the rights to that footage?
Yeah, so whoever owns the camera controls it. So if let's say I own the property and I put an outdoor camera, then you have to reach out to me to get the access to the footage. Yes.
We actually had that situation where we have a camera and our tenants didn't ask us if they could put a camera up, but it's just an idea. So we didn't say no, but right, we understand. So they own the camera and we have no access to it. So that down the line, so I'm not sure how it would work out, but
Yeah, well, if the tenant owns the camera, then the tenant will be the one to release.
Yeah.
But they have the footage, they own the footage and not the landlord. And also, just to point out some of the discussions that happened earlier on, I was eager to say something, but then I was reluctant also. But Albany County does have a mobile crisis hotline. And if you or you know of anyone who has mental illness or is going through a mental health crisis, there is a mobile hotline for you to call. I'll give out the number just in case anyone needs it. It is 518-549-6500. So you can call that number. Albany County Health Department can send people to the scene to help out with any mental health crisis or whatever might be going on. See? Any more questions?
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, just last one. This program that you have, do you envision maybe the county kind of giving grants to some of the property owners or businesses to kind of help them get cameras in the future? Like, do you anticipate that happening maybe in the future?
Yes, that's another resolution that we are working on. Is actually in the works right now. Well, which means Albany County, we're going to set up money, and the county sheriff is also in agreement with this, that they are going to use some of their season money to help businesses with funding so that they can purchase cameras and put it outside so that more businesses and more individuals can have outdoor cameras. And this is, of course, to help everyone in fighting crime and reducing gun violence, especially in our county. So yes.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.